Welcome back to another episode of the Infinite Jurisdiction podcast. I'm your host, Gonzalo, and I'm back once again to do this weekly podcast where I discuss my personal journey through law school. You can see at the bottom of the screen my roommate, Weena. I'm sure she's going to be a frequent guest here on the podcast, not formally, mostly just doing what she wants as usual. Continuing with our normal three-part structure to this podcast, beginning first with what it is I'm doing this weekend. Not much has changed since last week. I think I mentioned last week that I've been focusing on legal writing, and this book has been the guide. It's a free plug, Just Writing, by Aspen Course Series. A very good, I wouldn't say short, I guess it's 300 pages, but it doesn't seem very comprehensive. A comprehensive book on writing might be like 1,000 pages, but it's an incredible, useful guide to write in the American legal style, and I've gone through it, and I made an outline. Law students get very used to writing outlines, and from now until I die, I'm going to be writing outlines for whatever it is I'm reading. So anticipate outlines becoming a big part of your life. So I created that outline. I'm going to review it and then implement writing exercises so I could get certain things down, from the very small issues that I'm having with grammar, say, and to the very big things like coherence and persuasion, stuff like that. So that's what I've been doing this week. I've also been going through some, what would you call them? Certification programs on Westlaw. I finished many of those just so I could get a better handle on tools to refine one's researching abilities on that legal database. I'll probably be looking to do that for Lexus as well. So far, I'm a bigger fan of Westlaw. I don't know what you guys prefer. I haven't actually done any research to see what exactly is the difference between those two things besides interfaces. I believe one has slightly different content than the other, but I don't know which database that is and what it is they have that's different. But I guess I'll learn that at some point. So that's my twin focuses this week, again, which is researching and writing. Let me get you out of here. So that's what I've been doing this week. Being a lawyer means an accumulation of a number of skills. I wrote it down once. There were at least 8 that I can think of. It's like writer, verbal communicator, researcher, team player. I suppose this goes for everything, but specifically if you're opening up your own firm, you're also a business person. So there's a lot of skills that the profession demands, and you have to work on them now in law school. So when you're out of school and in the workplace, you're not entirely novice to all these kinds of things, and it is daunting, I have to say, but you have to look forward to the learning process for anything that comes your way there's a book called Letters to a Young Lawyer by Alan Dershowitz. Um, one of them, one of the essays in the book is called like The Last Exam, and he talks about, the law student thinks his last exam or her last exam is going to be their final semester in law school, but in fact, one could look at the rest of their lawyering career as a series of exams. Whenever you take on a case, you're being tested. Whenever you are interacting with a client or another lawyer, you're being tested in some shape or form. And there's multiple points in your career where you're going to be asked to learn something, you'll learn it, and you'll be quote unquote graded on it, and there's going to be a result, and you have to face that result, and you have to learn from that result too. So you have to get used to this continual learning process, just apart from learning the law as it changes substantively throughout your career. So you have to have the attitude of always looking to learn, not having a problem with making mistakes. And I'm already kind of dipping into what it is I wanted to talk about for the second part of this video, where I talk about like a general principle of law school. So I'll just transition to that part. What I would recommend to a lot of students is taking this aphorism or pithy statement seriously, which is to say, the good news is you're going to make a lot of mistakes. The bad news, though, is that you're going to have to learn from them. And I like the twist in that statement, because the good news is you're going to make mistakes. For a lot of people, even getting there is a hard pill to swallow, because we don't like to make mistakes. So many of us don't even engage in something new because of a fear of making mistakes and being embarrassed and all the possible negative impacts it may have when we try something and fail. But you have to do that. And I think getting into law school, most of the students are fairly okay with adversity, so the making mistakes part isn't hard. What law school then really sharpens is making mistakes. Okay, you're good with it, but the real work begins at analyzing why you made those mistakes and how to fix them. That second or third step is a much more difficult process, because for one, it requires a level of honesty with oneself. You have to be able to be comfortable with saying, like, I personally am responsible for this mistake. No one else is to blame, so only I could fix it. It also requires a degree of critical analysis, because you have to be smart about like what exactly went wrong. And once you find out what went wrong, say you're bad at taking exams in your 1L year, like, what am I doing wrong? What are the big issues? Is it that I'm not hitting every issue? Is it my writing style? Am I not doing good analysis sections? So you have to be able to identify precisely what it is that you're doing wrong. And then the last step, which is the hardest, is once you are comfortable with saying you made mistakes, and then you're able to analyze what it is that you're doing wrong, you have to be even more scrupulous in this last step and say, okay, here are my issues. What's the best way to go about fixing these errors? And what practical steps do you need to take in order to obviate or improve your skills? And sometimes you're led astray by false solutions that aren't actually going to help you, but you like to do them. Like personally, I was bad at taking exams in my first year, and I had to do this kind of thing, be honest with myself about what mistakes I'm making. Second, see what mistakes I was in fact making, and then third, make solutions to help myself. And because I was honest, I noticed that I do like to read. So often my solutions were just do more reading, read the cases more, read supplementary help. But in fact, the better way to improve my exams was to just do more practice tests, which I don't like to do. So obviously my mind always was saying, just do more reading. But in fact, I needed to do the practice exam. So you have to, again, be honest with yourself as to what you like and what you don't like, and what is necessary and what is unnecessary. So that's the law school theme I wanted to talk about this week, which is constructively learning from one's mistakes and how difficult that is. And I'll end on saying, once you master this general structure of here's this goal, whatever the goal is, learning or mastering contracts or torts, you do it and there's an initial result, and then you'll have to engage in the process of being honest with yourself as to your degree of expertise on it. Then the next step of thinking about what it is you need to do to improve. And then the final step of creating actual solutions to your faults in this area. And once you master that general structure, it's a general software that's applicable in any area of the profession that you're engaging in. Just this very general learning and improving aspect of the profession. So this could be applied to working with clients or building your brand, or any finer skill like writing, for instance, that I just spoke about. So once you test this and you kind of refined it, you feel very confident about your abilities to engage in whatever it is that's being asked of you, from writing to writing a memo to speaking with the client. So that's what I want to talk about this week. The final thing for this video, and again, this video series consists of 3 parts. The last one I talk about general legal ideas that I find interesting this week, and this week I wanted to talk about finding, I guess, your moral meaning in your work. That is to say, the work you do tells you that you're doing something positive in the world, or in the lives of human beings around you. I'm always interested on other law students' opinion on this matter because um, for me, the dichotomy that I like to establish is like there's a paradigm where someone does a job that is fairly separated from their actual interests, and but they do this ancillary work on the side that where they dedicate themselves to some moral project that they're very passionate about and hope to create positive change in the world by assisting in. And so that's one paradigm. The other paradigm would be working full time in whatever field that is dedicated to that moral project that they're engaging in. So, for example, if you're dedicated to the depopulation of the prisons in the U.S., you're going to work full time as a lawyer, or let's say a public defender, helping juvenile offenders avoid jail time. But on the other side, with the other paradigm, you have someone who works as a personal injury attorney, but who dedicates some portion of their time on the side, whatever time they have free, to causes that are legal in nature, like the abolition of the death penalty in California or something like that, or removing the fault-based system in tort so that plaintiffs could get their money faster and with less expensive, something like that. And I try to think about which paradigm I find myself in, because I think there's a reason for the two paradigms that's not trivial. I find myself more right now at this point in my legal career wanting to be in that first paradigm where I am some type of lawyer fairly disengaged from a certain moral project, but wanting to do extra to dedicate myself to some legal movement to help better the world. And I'm trying to figure out what exactly those causes would be, the legal causes that I would dedicate myself to. Many people around me, fellow colleagues, don't have to engage in this type of choosing, because most of the time they choose a legal cause that's fairly close to home, right? That have some personal experience with this or that injustice, and so they dedicate themselves to the abolition of that injustice. But for me, I don't know if I would go. I definitely don't go about choosing the cause in that way. At least not so far. So that's where I find myself in terms of, what I find intellectually interesting about the law right now is how to choose between those two paradigms that I laid out, and then B, once you're in the first paradigm, choosing what it is you want to dedicate your life to. At some point I'll have to make that serious decision soon, and it will be recorded in this podcast at some point. But it's always fascinating to see where that very important answer will end up, because it'll determine one's life course. So that's going to require a lot of serious thinking on my behalf. Quiet, introspective, wondering about moral issues. And yeah, what a weird world. Anyway, so that covers what I wanted to talk about in 3 parts for this week of my law school journey. 2nd episode down. How exciting. That covers it, guys. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.